In this video we're going to look at currency, and we're going to look at typical exam questions that are based around converting between currencies. So here we've got an exchange rate. You might see something like this in the post office. And if we wanted to change our money from UK pounds into American dollars, this exchange rate would say that for every £1 you give them at the post office, for instance, you would get $1.50 back. Okay, so for instance, if you give them £1, you get $1.50 back. If you give them £2, you get $3 back because you get another $1.50 and so on. Okay, so that's how an exchange rate works, that you would give them a certain amount of money and you get money back. So here we've got £1 was obviously $1.50, £2 would be $3, another pound, well, it'd be another $1.50, so it would be $4.50 for £3. For £4, well, the £4 would be another $1.50, so that'd be $6 and so on. Now, whenever you want to change money for like larger amounts of pounds into dollars, you wouldn't want to just keep on carrying on this list. We want a quicker way to do that. So let's look and see how you would do that now. So, obviously we could just carry on this list, but if I wanted to change £10 into dollars, well, rather than writing out this all the way down to, to £10, what I would notice is that I'd have 10 lots of $1.50, because for every pound you get $1.50. So I'm going to times 10 by $1.50, or by 1.5. So if you times the pounds by this number here, what you would get for £1, then that would tell you how many dollars you would get. So we're going to do 10 times by 1.5. I don't need to put the 0 on. So 10 times 1.5, well, it's going to be 15. So I get $15. Likewise, if I wanted to change £200 into dollars, well, because I want to change into dollars, so I'm going to times by this number. So I'm going to do 200 times by $1.50, so or 1.5. So 200 times by 1.5 would give me $300. And if we wanted to go backwards, well, I could carry on this list of $1.50s, or if you want to go backwards from dollars into pounds, you would just divide by 1.5. So I'm going to do 45 divided by 1.5, and then that would tell me that's equal to £30. Okay, so if you want to change into the money, into dollars, you would times by the 1.5, and if you want to convert back into pounds, you would divide by 1.5. Okay, let's look at some other questions now. So, here's a typical question. Sophie went to Spain. She changed £240 into euros. The exchange rate was £1 equals 1.4 euros. Now that's going to be quite important, this number here, 1.4. It says change £240 into euros. So again, you could write a list down, £1, £2, £3, all the way to £240 and count up how many €1.40 you get. Or a quicker way is to just times the £240 by the number in the exchange rate, the 1.4, and that will convert it into euros. So 240 times by 1.4 gives us 336 euros, and that's how much you would get if she changed £240 into euros. On her return to England, Sophie changed 65 euros into pounds, so she's gone backwards now, back into pounds. The new exchange rate was £1 equals €1.30. So that's going to be quite important again, that 1.3, that €1.30. And what that's saying is that if we want to convert back from euros into pounds, we're going to want to divide the 65 euros by the 1.3. So you're going to do 65 divided by 1.3, and that would tell me how many pounds it would be. That would be exactly £50. And you could check that, you could times the £50 by 1.3 and get 65 euros. This one's a bit more complicated. Thomas goes on holiday to Japan. He wants to change some money into yen. The bank only stocks 1,000 yen notes. Thomas wants to change up to £400 into yen, so he's got up to £400 that he's going to change into yen. He wants to get as many 1,000 yen notes as possible. The exchange rate is £1 equals 168 yen. How many 1,000 yen notes will he get? So what I would do is recommend to see is how many, if we have our £400, is to change that into yen and see in theory, how much £400 is worth in yen. So because the exchange rate is £1 is 168 yen, we're going to times that by 168. Okay, because obviously if we want to change from pounds into yen, we want to multiply by this number. So we're going to do 400 times by 168, and that gives us 67,200 yen. I've drawn the yen symbol before. Okay, so 67,200 yen. Okay, so that's the maximum amount you can get. Now, unfortunately, in this bank where he's buying his Japanese currency, they only have 1,000 yen notes. Okay, so what it means is that he couldn't actually get 67,200, but he could get 67,000 because he could get 67 notes. Okay, so this is how many. The maximum he could get would be 67,000. So obviously the maximum amount of money he could get from this bank would be 67,000 yen, okay? Because obviously they only stock 1,000 yen notes. So that means that he would get 67 of those notes. And 67 of those notes would be 67,000. And that's it. So to recap, if you had an exchange rate, for instance, £1 equals $1.50, to convert into dollars, you would multiply by 1.5, and to convert back into pounds, you would divide by 1.5. If you had an exchange rate, such as £1 equals €1.40, to change into euros, you'd multiply by 1.4, and to change back into pounds, you'd divide by 1.4. And that's it.
Hi, this is Almi, and in this video, I'm gonna explain to you about exchange rate, especially about the definition, concepts, and examples. And we will start from the definition of exchange rate. Exchange rate is the value of one country's currency against another country's currency. The exchange rate is influenced by several factors, such as domestic interest rates, inflation rates, and central bank intervention in the money market if necessary. So, it is constantly changing. For example, how many rupiahs are needed to buy $1? Well, on April 25, 2022, the exchange rate is 14,432, which is mean it takes 14,432 to buy $1. And the term for this exchange ratio is the exchange rate. Okay, in another example, the exchange rate between euro and US dollar, which can be calculated as follows. If the buying price of euro is 11940 US dollar and the selling price is 11210 US dollar, the exchange rate is 194 1940 plus 2010 divided 2 is 11950 US dollar. As I said before, the exchange rate is influenced by several factors. Okay, one case. In 2004, Japan economics was very good and rising, which made foreign investors interested in investing. And at the time, the Japan's currency, that is yen, exchange rate rose to the high demand for the currency. Okay guys, that's the simple example about the exchange rate, and now we're gonna continue to the concept. Bye. Hi, welcome back, and this is Almi, and let's continue to talk about exchange rate. The exchange rate of the currency itself can experience two things, namely appreciation or increase and depreciation or decrease. And when experiencing appreciation, a currency exchange rate is increasing or its value becomes stronger compared to currencies from other countries. On the other hand, what is meant by depreciation is a decrease in the price or value of a country's currency compared to the currency of another country. Currency exchange methods. Okay, in determining the exchange rate of currency, there are two main systems that can be used. The first is floating currency, and the second is pegged currency. For the first system, the market will determine the floating exchange rate. And in other words, buyers will be willing to pay whatever currencies is worth. And this is determined based on demand and supply, which in turn is driven by foreign investment, inflation, export and import risks, and various other economics factors. Generally, countries that have stable and mature economic markets will use a floating currency exchange system. And this means that almost all the latest countries will use this system in exchange rate activities, including the United States, Great Britain, and Canada. And the reason is because floating exchange rates are considered more efficient. And this is because the market will immediately correct the exchange rate automatically by reflecting on economics, strength, inflation, and the other factors. Okay guys, I think that's all about the exchange rate, especially about the definition, the concepts, and the small or simple examples. And also, I think we will discuss more in the next video about the exchange rate, because talking about exchange rate, that's like a biggest mystery. So let's discuss more. Thank you.